luck, friend. Light be with you. king's honor, friend. 1 minute. You need a priest to mind control one of the worshippers and cast the silence on the boss. It will dispel the enrage and kill the ad. Rinse and repeat, kill that boss. Maxna. Tank this boss in the middle of the room facing away from everybody else. Have 2 off tanks pick up all the small spiders in the room throughout the fight. They tend to spawn on opposite sides of the room. Group them up and AoE them down. Every now and then the boss will web wrap 3 people, which knocks you back to the edge of the room and cocoons you. Have a group of ranged assigned to attack these webs to get people out. Every 40 seconds the boss will cast web spray, which will stun everyone in the raid for 8 seconds. You should pre-hop the tank and maybe pop some cooldowns too if you need. Dispel poisons, use nature resist pots or gear if you suck. Kill it! Noth the Plagebringer. The main mechanic of this fight is all about decursing Curse of the Plaguebringer, which if left too long will wipe the raid. You can tank this boss wherever, he'll cast a blink which will slow everyone around him and drop aggro. DPS should hold off attacking him until the main tank gains aggro back. The blink usually coincides with ads spawning, off tanks pick them up and DPS should swap to them and nuke them down. After 90 seconds the boss will teleport away and you'll have to kill all the ads. The boss will stay here until the ads are dead or until 90 seconds has passed. This will happen 2 more times, 110 seconds after he reappears, and again 3 minutes after the second time he reappears. Hegan the Dirty. Get ready to kick people from your guild because this is without doubt the easiest boss in the game ever. The boss has a mana burn aura around him so healers in range stand on the boss podium, whilst your melee and the tank the boss on the lower ground. Tank him here to begin with, the main mechanic will begin shortly. The room is split into 4 parts in which sludge will come out of the ground in 3/4 of the room. Avoid this, the sludge will move across the room from left to right and back, repeating until the second phase. Also, the boss will teleport people outside the room, run back before phase 2 begins. The second phase is simply the same eruption mechanic, just a bit quicker, and the boss teleports to the podium so now the melee can laugh at the massively inferior ranged and healers fail at this mechanic. Repeat, kill the boss. Luatheb. This boss is a big DPS race, spores will spawn throughout the fight that when they die will give 5 people around them a 50% increased critical strike bonus and no threat gain. Don't let this hit your tanks. You need to make sure everyone gets this buff ASAP, starting with your biggest pumpers. The main mechanic of this fight is Corrupted Mind, which gives a 1 minute cooldown on healing spells. You need to prioritize these heals to keep the tank up, which means that DPS should try and use health potions, bandages and health stones to heal themselves. Judgment of Light or Poison Cleansing Totem can help alleviate some of the damage going out. After 2 minutes, the boss will begin casting Inevitable Doom every 30 seconds. This deals a lot of damage. After 5 minutes, he casts every 15 seconds, so hurry up and kill that boss! Roundman. This fight has pretty much one tactic, which is Hateful Strike. This deals a lot of damage to a person in melee range that both has the most health and is within the top 4 of threat. This won't hit your main tank, it is a good idea to have at least 4 tanks to be able to soak these hits. Heal up the off tanks ASAP so they can continue soaking the Hateful Strikes. At 5% the boss will enrage, so maybe hold cooldowns for that, otherwise he also enrages at 7 minutes, so get ready to make quick work of Patchworth. Grabola. Pull this boss to the edge of the room, he drops a poison cloud on his location which expands over time, so you want to slowly kite him around the entire edge of the room the whole time. Make sure the main tank is the only one in front of the boss as he casts Slime Spray which spawns a slime for every target that is hit. Nuke these down. He will randomly inject players with Mutating Injection. The debuff lasts for 10 seconds and when it expires it deals AoE damage and drops a poison cloud. Make sure to run away from the group when you get this and drop the poison cloud in a suitable location so you're not going to mess up the tank route 30 seconds down the line. At 30% he injects players more frequently, so kill the boss before you run out of room. Gluth. Tank this big boy facing the door. The boss casts a 10% healing reduction every now and then, so swap at 4 to 5 stacks. The boss will also fear everyone within 20 yards every 20 seconds, so either fear ward the tanks or prepare to die. Hunters need to trank shot the Enrage every 10 seconds. Zomboids will spawn near the grate at the back of the room. You need to have DPS aggro and kite these, but keep them as far back as possible. Try to avoid getting hit by them. Slows and novas are very epic. Every 105 seconds, the boss will cast Decimate. This drops all the zombies to 5% health and they will begin walking to the boss. You need to kill them all before they reach him, otherwise they heal him. After the third Decimate, the boss will permanently enrage, so kill it quick. Pipe Boss. This is one of the trickier bosses in Naxx that you will encounter. However, with good preparation, you can avoid this raid killer. What you want to do is stand so that your character is directly above the pipe and walk in the direction that the pipe travels. After some time walking, you will spot a large opening in which you want to jump through. Try to avoid jumping off the pipe, as this will cause you to no longer walk along the pipe. Pipe Boss. This is one of the trickier bosses in Naxx that you will encounter. However, with good preparation, you can avoid this raid killer. What you want to do is stand so that your character is directly above the pipe and walk in the direction that the pipe travels. After some time walking, you will spot a large opening in which you want to jump through. Try to avoid jumping off the pipe, as this will cause you to no longer walk along the pipe. Thaddeus. For the first phase, you need to split your raid into 2 groups. Both groups need healers and a tank, but the groups need to be melee in one and ranged and casters in the other. The melee group goes to Fergus, whilst the range group goes to Stallone. Stallone does a bit more damage than Fergus, but Fergus drains mana. Kill them both within a few seconds of each other. Jump over this ledge, kick anyone that doesn't make it first try. 2 raid-wide debuffs will appear on you. This is the polarity mechanic. You will be assigned a charge of positive or negative. Split the room into 2 sides with negative on the left and positive on the right. Tank the boss in the center of the platform. If you're stacked with the wrong polarity, you will cause and take damage from everyone around you. If you're in the correct polarity, you will get a big DPS buff. Every 30 seconds, your polarity might change, so pay attention. You have 5 seconds to get to the right side before the effect begins. Thaddeus has a 5-minute enrage timer. Kill that boss. The Slime Gauntlet. This is a boss you'll face just after Patchword. Kunyan has contacted me directly to make this video, as it is one of the bosses that they wiped on the most in vanilla. For this boss, I'd suggest turning your game settings right down to boost maximum frame rate. I wouldn't attempt this boss without a 300Hz gaming monitor and a WoW foot pedal binded to move forward. Now, to get down to the fight. A lot of people don't realize, but there is actually a tiny gap in between each slime that you can walk through. What you need to do is position yourself in between this gap and walk through. Round Man. Soaking a minute. Drops a runaway on the tension. You have 5 seconds to get to the right. A new Breakin.
Right? Yeah, there you go. See? No problem.
Tell me the server went down. Still showing me Endurotar.
Wait, you relogged.
Yeah. On the care screen it said I was Endurotar.
Can't even exit. Do I have to alt F4? Is it gonna reset my settings? East or west, yeah. Research the road. No. Oh. After all the him not being 30 is the problem. He's about to hit 29. That like really that keeps the cycle of doing over leveled content and not getting enough XP out of it continues. We need to break that by just fucking farming. Spending like 3 hours to get a full level and that's it. That is it. That is it. But maybe we're oh. We're too low for the quests. Nice. They started at 30.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Grind it out, dude.
You were
This is-
saying that we could.
This is it. Grind it out. No choices. Gotta go. It's weird that the quests are. Oh, it doesn't show for me. Oh, it's not gonna show either way. Wait, what the fuck? These mobs are 35.
Yeah, what do you think they would be? There's a reason.
Yeah, the best thing would be to get a group. But just do dungeons. Getting a good warrior is the big problem. I don't really know anybody that can do any of that. Whoa, Greasig.
Guys, I'm struggling in life. Can somebody pay pounds for money?
Thanks, Greasig. Leveled with another person, you know? I mean, we need like, we're basically gonna waste like a bunch more hours still. Oh, 34. We're gonna have to like waste like 3 more hours or something to catch up to where we want. wanna be. What's happening? Can't shoot. What the fuck?
Hmm?
Couldn't use my wands. So weird. No. But like shit like this. Generally, if you ever look at my mana, it's like below 50%. Expect me to
Yeah,
like.
I know you were looking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much the only time I'm not gonna cast is when Spirit taps up, so I don't interrupt the regen.
Okay.
It's like if you're low and I'm not casting.
Maybe between the top hunters that are in 40s and the warlocks in 30s. Yeah, warlock isn't a hunter. What the fuck? If you're like a good speedrunner, you're gonna play hunter, but a hunter is significantly faster than a warlock. A lot of people think that it's like almost interchangeable. It's not. Hunter is way faster. Warlock is like mate speed.
Valid
Oh,
game
fuck.
suggestion for one episode of WoW.
No. No. They're gonna be very different depending on the type of combat that you're doing. Some people drain tank with a succubus. Some people like to play with a voidwalker, and they build into demo because you have to build better aggro on him. Even if you virtually do no damage, you know. Some people like me team up with a priest and don't have to worry about taking damage.
It says 33. It doesn't feel like 33. Feel like 6 of them. The hunter should be almost here though.
Before it
Yeah,
evades.
he's right near me now. Okay, we're coming.
Man, the immolate and the fucking corruption are so expensive. Like, you wouldn't use that shit with a voidwalker. It's so much slower. I'm a sleeper, dude. Look at Kaiser. Kaiser went fucking crazy, man. How is that guy so good? Sleepy gamer. That's me. I am no longer sleepy, man. Tomorrow, I think. No, in 2 days actually. Need to catch up on like PoE news and stuff. Yeah, no, it hasn't really been much. Nice. When bag add-on? I'm gonna get it after this. I'm gonna get the bag add-on and then what's the other thing? Oh, the HP. And then I'll fix my recount. I don't know what's up with that. Need to be able to see threat. I mean, this shit is useless for right now. He's triggered by this now? Fuck. This guy's holding aggro. He's crazy.
Someone who actually knows how to play their class. It's goddamn rare.
Boom. Okay, that was full DPS, guys. I mean, I wasn't digging at the start, but... Oh my god.
Are we done here?
How do we leave?
You right click this altar.
No.
Okay. Oh wait. Getting on like super early before the queues get big. Do we want to do that like every day? Even
Yeah.
if it means like not going for 24 hours, I just like going for like 18 and 6 or something like that.
Well, maybe, yeah. Sounds good. You guys stunned that I said that to him? Come on,
You
chat.
gotta make good use
I would
of
never
those
do
18
that.
hours then. I want to be at least 40 today. Minimum.
40.
Yeah, 40, 40, 40.
Mr. Screaming can't listen to Hobbit. Oh, we're gonna get 40 easily. In 45 hours and log out at the exact time that you need to, you know? Like, not that big of a deal, dude. Really not that complicated, dog. Just have to be smart about it. Shit, where am I? Oh. Oh, ramen, like some sort of duck dish that I'm eating right now, and kimchi jjigae, which is like kimchi soup. And they asked me they called me to ask how spicy should the soup be, and then they asked me how many sets of chopsticks I want, and I was too embarrassed to say that I'm gonna eat all this food by myself, so I said 3 instead of 1.
It's Smug with the greatest of ease.
Round 1. Fight.
Alright, I win. Check this out. You said poor Yoga Man. He plays Yoga Man. This character's cheap.
I missed it. Showtime. No Showtime. No Get Gaia. Impact. Gaia. Impact. Round 2.
This is a wash. Oh, this is the worst that can happen. Yo, the merch is coming. It's coming soon. It's coming very soon. Very soon. Very soon. Just hold on, man. Y'all so impatient, man. I can't have nothing for a surprise.
Hello friends and welcome to my first ever random encounter of a PlayStation 5 game. So hopefully this records properly. It's been a bit of a nightmare trying to get this set up with my HD60. It's really not wanted to work apparently. Some of the older HD60s are having a bit of trouble with PlayStation 5 games, but I'm here and I'm starting off with the game I've enjoyed the most out of all of the next gen experiences I've had with the two new consoles, the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. And boy oh boy, like I know HDR doesn't do well over the internet, and 4K can get compressed to shit and colors can be squashed, but man, does this game look so good. This is like the only game I've played, I think, that genuinely feels like some next gen visual nonsense, and I'm excited to show it to you. I will say this is a little bit of a break from the norm for Random Encounter, because usually with Ori I like to do my research and I basically like to give you an appraisal of the game, like a buyer's guide sort of thing, a little bit of history, all that. But not only am I not all that far into this, I don't know, maybe I've been playing for like 3 or 4 hours, maybe 5. I'm really taking my time, and I also have almost no experience with the original Demon's Souls. Alright. Can hear you all screaming in the comments from here.
Scoping parry tendencies is one of the main skill sets you develop from this game, which translates to exactly 0 other fighting games. The big thing about parry tendencies that makes them so easy to scope is that, like, when you look at when your opponent reversals, you're scoping out, like, something that's basically very random for them. But when you're scoping out when your opponent parries, you're also scoping out their capacity to parry. Like, people are limited. Different players will have different skill, like, levels of parrying, and they'll make decisions based on that skill level. Like, if something's a hard parry, no one will go for the parry there if they're, like, below the skill level, the skill threshold to parry it. I guess it does translate to Yatagaras. I'm of a very small group of people who actually genuinely like Street Fighter V a lot. I have a very positive opinion on the game. I think it's fun to play. That guy fucking bounced, dude. He like said he was bouncing when he bounced. Good luck on the overhead. Not that Alex's lows are that scary. That was a good red. And a good punish. That could have been empty cancelled. Like that. Yeah.
Destroy them.
Hello again everyone, and welcome back. I've returned with another guide, the exceptionally versatile Bleed Bow Gladiator. Eviscerate hordes of enemies with 10 projectile split arrows that swiftly chain between them, inflicting powerful bleeds. Every bleeding enemy will explode on death, annihilating everything nearby with a satisfying bleed pop. Single shots will often spread to multiple packs, easily clean up stragglers, and even off-screen enemies you'll never see. One-shot endgame bosses with a wickedly strong puncture triggered by a Salem snipe. When fully charged, this single bleed will kill almost anything in seconds, ending most fights with a single brutal strike. Our boss damage doesn't rely on flasks and a bunch of triggered buffs to get the job done. Just simple, consistent, powerful bossing. Defensively, the build has high mobility and can comfortably engage from distance. It pushes a 6 to 7,000+ life pool, strong physical damage reduction, 5 endurance charges, extremely consistent blind, overcapped resistances, a bit of block and dodge, and exceptional life sustain through regen, leech, and automatic enduring cry, and life gain on both stun and kill. With a careful playstyle and strong defensive investment, this is doable in hardcore. The build's gear is almost entirely flexible rares and affordable uniques. Built-in bleed explosions, tons of projectiles, and the power of a Salem allows a modest setup to achieve impressive results, making this decent in solo self-found and a fantastic league starter, with potential to be scaled to impressive heights with continued investment. If you'd like to devastate maps with satisfying bleed pops and one-shot the endgame with supercharged bleeds, I heavily recommend trying this out. This guide uses the Path of Building community fork to summarize its key information. Copy in the pastebin link found below for access to all gem setups, gear sets, and skill trees. I'll be updating the Path of Building link for each new league. All changes will be in the POB notes and video description. And if you're enjoying the guide, consider subbing to the channel for more in the future. Now let's break down the build's fundamentals and endgame skill tree. We'll be running 2 core skills, both completely focused on inflicting bleed and scaling that bleed damage. Our hits will have a 100% chance to inflict bleeding, a damaging ailment that deals physical damage over time for a set duration. Multiple bleeds can be applied to an enemy at once, but only the strongest bleed will actively deal damage. Bleeding targets that are moving take dramatically increased damage from the bleed. Against bosses, we'll be using Ensnaring Arrow to force this status, ensuring that maximum damage is always being dealt. Split Arrow fires a wide spread of up to 10 arrows that deal 100% physical damage, reliably inflicting a reasonably strong bleed onto everything nearby. Puncture will be used for bossing. It's a single strong projectile that is guaranteed to cause a long bleed that deals up to 49% more damage. When socketed into the Asylum helmet, it becomes a channeled skill, allowing it to be charged up to accumulate stages, up to a maximum of 6. When released, for every stage, Puncture will deal 120% more damage with ailments, a truly monstrous damage increase to our bleeds that allows just a single puncture shot to quickly kill most bosses. In the Path of Building, I'll be including 4 endgame skill trees to fit every budget. Fantastic performance can be achieved on each, starting cheap with no unique jewels, into moderate with unique jewels and small cluster setups, and finally expensive with heavy unique and cluster jewel usage. Offensively, here's the core skill tree I recommend working towards. The offensive notables we'll be picking up, and a quick look at some of the standout inclusions. We wield a bow and use physical projectile-based attacks to inflict bleeds that deal physical damage over time. We're focused on inflicting a single, strong bleed, and don't need to invest heavily into attack speed as a result. We'll be scaling our bleeds with relevant damage over time multipliers, improvements to the speed at which bleeding and damaging ailments inflict damage, and increases to damage over time, as well as other relevant damage types. We aren't critical strike focused, instead sacrificing them completely with the Keystone Resolute technique to guarantee that our attacks will always hit. We'll also be offensively cursing enemies with vulnerability and debuffing them with Ensnaring Arrow. Defensively, here are the notables we'll be allocating and some of the standout inclusions. We'll be scaling large amounts of life across the tree, investing into several endurance charges, heavily scaling armor, getting life leech from this minor node, and overcapping our elemental resistances. This keystone, Wind Dancer, reduces the damage we take if we haven't been hit recently. This comes with little downside, as our evasion is mostly blind-based. This keystone, Call to Arms, makes our Enduring Cry instant, allowing us to use it as our move-only key, ensuring it will be effortlessly activated as often as possible, drastically boosting both life regen and endurance charge generation. Sustaining mana is accomplished mostly through Mana Leech, which we'll be allocating here, with additional support from Cinder Swallow's recovery on kill, and possibly from mana cost reductions on our rings or amulet. Jewels that modify our skill trees include Lion Eyes Fall, which converts melee and melee weapon type modifiers in its radius into bow modifiers. In this specific socket, it converts these axe and sword modifiers into bow modifiers we can actually use. The notable cleaving is outside this zone, but that's not an issue as it's still ridiculously good unconverted. Thread of Hope allows us to allocate passives within its ring without pathing directly to them. We'll be placing one with a medium radius directly into this socket to gain access to strong notables that otherwise wouldn't be worth the point investment. Cluster Jewels have a strong place in the higher investment trees of the build. A basic setup will only feature a generic or physical damage over time multiplier medium Cluster Jewel with a combination of these notables. A more advanced setup will feature a physical or bow damage large cluster jewel with some of these notables, connected to two of the previously discussed medium clusters. You don't need the exact jewels seen here. They may become expensive. Make searches featuring a variety of the notables listed until you find something that fits your budget. For our bandit choice, I recommend siding with either Aramir for the 2 passive points, or shockingly with Oak, who offers a decent array of versatile modifiers. Now let's discuss pantheons. Many of the major gods can serve the build well. I prefer running Lunaris. Let's break down our gladiator ascendancy. Blood in the eyes causes our hits to consistently maim enemies and inconsistently blind them, reducing their movement speed and chance to hit heavily. Enemies maimed by us take 10% increased physical damage, a form of more multiplier and solid boost to our bleed damage. Gratuitous Violence is an offensive monster, providing both 30% increased and a staggering 25% more bleeding damage. On top of that, bleeding enemies we kill will now explode, dealing 10% of their maximum life as physical damage to everything near them, taking our clear speed to an entirely new level. Arena Challenger grants the build access to Challenger charges. These are gained in different ways depending on our current stance. When engaging lots of enemies, we'll consistently be at 10, granting us 20% more attack and movement speed. A powerful gameplay smoothing effect that feels like Deadeye's Tailwind. And finally, we've got Outmatch and Outlast. We'll be wielding a bow, which is considered main hand. As a result, this node only grants frenzy charges on kill. We'll still be generating endurance charges, but from other sources. At maximum frenzy, we'll deal 10% more physical damage, and at maximum endurance, we take 10% reduced physical damage. I recommend picking up your ascendancies in this order. Now let's talk skill and support gem setups. If available, here are some compelling alternative quality skill gems to consider. Let's begin with our split arrow 6-link, socketed into our body armor or bow, whichever is easiest to fully link. Most of our support gems, including vicious projectiles, brutality, chance to bleed, and deadly ailments, are simply our best in slot increases to bleed damage. Some come with small, mostly irrelevant downsides, such as reduced attack speed, less damage with hits, or the removal of extraneous damage types, but none of this will really impact our bleed damage. The outlier here is chain support, which causes our split arrow projectiles to bounce off targets they hit on a path towards other nearby enemies, spreading to multiple packs and cleaning up stragglers you'd have to manually kill without it. Budget permitting, most of these gems have awakened versions to consider running. Alternatively, if you're using Lion Eyes Vision, your split arrow projectiles will be piercing rather than chaining. Run a setup like this instead, replacing chain with Swift Affliction, another strong increase to the power of our bleeds. Next, we've got our 4-link puncture setup, socketed directly into the helmet Asylum. Be sure to maximize puncture's gem level and quality, as both have a significant impact on our damage output. We'll be running the 3 best support gems for improving bleed damage. Again, consider upgrading to their awakened versions if you have the currency. When socketed into Asylum, puncture is triggered by the skill Snipe, allowing it to inflict unbelievably strong bleeds. This interaction is fully discussed in the basics section of the guide. If you're having trouble landing your puncture shots, if available, an anomalous puncture will pierce enemies, making it easier to land during chaotic fights at the cost of some damage. I highly recommend running this setup. It's far stronger than a 6-link could ever hope to be, but for some, landing a precise shot or needing to briefly stand still can be deal breakers. If so, here's a non-channeling 6-link puncture setup. This will deal heavily reduced damage, but can be rapidly fired without needing to charge up. Our next setup is an amalgam of 6 gems. This can be placed into our body armor or bow and doesn't need to be 6-linked. First, a 3-link setup. Enduring Cry is a war cry that will be binding as our move only key. As we move, it will be automatically triggered from time to time, regenerating up to a massive 2,000 life over 1 second, and generating endurance charges based on the enemies nearby. Dash is a strong movement skill that can be used to cross gaps, avoid damage, and traverse empty space. Link both to Second Wind support, which increases the cooldown recovery speed of both skills, and grants Dash an additional maximum use. If available, run an anomalous Second Wind, which grants Dash yet another maximum use. Next, another 3-link setup. Cast when damage taken will automatically trigger a Mortal Call when we take enough damage to meet its threshold. I recommend keeping it at level 1 so the threshold stays low, ensuring it triggers consistently. A Mortal Call's level requirement can't exceed cast when damage taken's, or it won't be triggered. Don't level it past 3. A Mortal Call reduces incoming elemental and physical damage heavily for a short time, and will consume all available endurance charges to heavily extend the length and potency of its buff. You can level this setup further if you'd like, but pay close attention to the level requirements. The last socket is flexible. I recommend running Vol Grace, not the aura, just the Vol portion of the skill. When activated, it grants a hefty amount of attack and spell dodge chance for a short time, very helpful during dangerous encounters. Or alternatively, you can expand the Immortal Call setup with increased duration. Next, we've got our 4-link aura setup, socketed into either our gloves or boots. Flesh and Stone is a dual mode aura we can swap at will. It has 2 different stances. In Sand, we take reduced damage from faraway enemies, and nearby enemies will be automatically blinded. In Blood, nearby enemies are automatically maimed and take up to 16% increased physical damage, improving the potency of our bleeds. War Banner is a banner skill that increases the physical damage nearby enemies take. Though it can be manually placed to gain small benefits, I recommend just leaving it as a consistent aura. Malevolence is our most powerful aura, granting up to 20% more damage over time, alongside increased skill effect duration, extending the length of our bleeds. Link all 3 to an enlightened support between levels 2 and 4 that causes linked auras to reserve slightly less mana, leaving more free for skill usage. And finally, we've got our 4-link debuff setup, socketed into our gloves or boots. Ensnaring Arrow is the quiet star of the build. It snares enemies it hits, tethering them to the ground up to 3 times. While ensnared, enemies take increased projectile damage. They'll have dramatically less movement speed, and crucially, are considered to be constantly moving, ensuring that against snared bosses, our bleeds deal their maximum level of damage consistently. We'll be automating Ensnaring Arrow with Ballista Totem, allowing us to place up to 3 totems on the ground that will automatically ensnare nearby enemies for us. Our Ascendancy node Blood in the Eyes causes Ensnaring Arrow to always maim on hit, increasing the physical damage maimed enemies take. The final socket is flexible. I recommend running GMP to help the totems consistently hit their mark. Alternatively, Culling Strike will cause the totems to automatically kill bosses on hit as long as they are below 10% life. Now let's discuss how to best use these skills to map and fight bosses. Here are the keybinds I used. Treat this as a baseline to be modified as you see fit. I heavily advise assigning Enduring Cry to left click, ensuring it will activate as much as possible without ever needing to worry about casting it yourself. When mapping, here are the troublesome map modifiers to keep in mind. Keep your stance locked to Sand. This will keep your Challenger charges maxed out, reduce the damage you take from faraway enemies, and keep nearby enemies blinded. Maintain consistent flask uptime, and dash frequently to avoid damage, cross gaps, and traverse empty space. If you find yourself in trouble, trigger Vol Grace, gain some distance, and heal up with Enduring Cry and your life flask. A single split arrow will typically be enough to hit most nearby enemies and kill them over a short time with the inflicted bleed. Spamming shots isn't necessary to ensure basic kills, but is recommended anytime heavy amounts of enemies are present. Using puncture while mapping should be avoided, but if necessary, even a partially charged puncture will be enough to rapidly kill larger threats. Engaging bosses is quite simple. For dangerous encounters, keep your stance in Sand mode. If you're comfortable and want the extra damage, switch over to Blood stance. A few moments before the fight begins, place all 3 Ensnaring Arrow totems near the boss's location. Charge up, do 6 stages of puncture, and accurately snipe the boss the moment they are susceptible. Immediately after firing, activate Vol Grace and your defensive flasks. If you landed the shot, your job is likely done. The totems will ensnare the boss, slowing them down and ensuring they take maximum damage. As the boss dies, gain some distance and clear any additional mobs they may spawn. Now let's forge on and discuss how to level the build. The path of building will contain leveling gear sets and skill trees to aid your progression. Let's begin with the skill trees. Here's the early leveling, mid leveling, late leveling, and initial endgame tree. Now for skill gems. Here are the most common ways of obtaining them. I recommend leveling with setups like these. We can start almost immediately with a split arrow and puncture setup. Be sure to utilize an Ensnaring Arrow Ballista Totem setup against bosses. Use dash as your movement skill, and run Enduring Cry as soon as possible. Utilize War Banner early, eventually dropping it for Flesh and Stone and Malevolence when they become available. Add War Banner back into the mix down the line when you're comfortably sustaining mana. And finally, get the cast and damage taken setup going when possible. For the gear, when league starting, run flexible, affordable rare gear in just about every slot. Prioritize maximum life, cap out your elemental resistances, get some movement speed on your boots, and pick up any needed attributes. For players leveling mid-league with currency available, here are some of the best leveling uniques you can run. For everyone, I recommend running flasks like these. Shore up freeze, bleed, and curse immunity early if possible. Now it's finally time to cover the endgame gear. Item prices are at the mercy of supply and demand and will vary over time. These categories will be used to better estimate the future cost of the items discussed. Let's begin with our bow. Your early bows should simply focus on maximizing physical damage. By that, I don't directly mean DPS. We want to inflict single powerful bleeds, even at the cost of attacking slower. Sorting by physical DPS, but capping your attacks per second, can help you find cheap, hard-hitting bows. Look for either flexibly priced rares with a focus on these modifiers, or cheap, well-rolled uniques such as Lionized Glare or Crimson Storm. As you accumulate currency, you'll want to work towards our ultimate bow, an Elder-influenced rare with the modifier 60% chance for bleeding inflicted with this weapon to deal 100% more damage, which as it sounds will frequently cause bleeds inflicted by both split arrow and puncture to be drastically stronger. Alongside this central modifier, you'll want strong physical damage, weapon quality, helpful bleed-related modifiers, and attack speed if nothing better is available. For our body armor, the cheap Belly of the Beast is an easy recommendation. It offers a massive amount of percentage increased life, some resistances and armor, and also heavily improves the potency of our life flask. When rolled well, the amount of life on offer is hard to match with even very optimized rares. You can comfortably run this permanently. Alternatively, a rare chest piece can do really good work. Prioritize both flat and percentage increased maximum life, strong armor, and plenty of resistances. Or if you want to maximize Split Arrow's damage potential at the cost of clear speed and usability, the cheap Lionized Vision is a solid choice. For those on a budget, combining your bow or body armor with a cheap Prophecy Jeweler's Touch will net you an instant 5-link. The cheap Tabula Rasa provides a flexible 6-link, but comes with no modifiers. And a search like this will yield a variety of cheap, corrupted 6-links with decent modifiers and the correct socket colors for Split Arrow. Our quiver will be a flexibly priced rare. A budget example will simply feature great life and resistances. A mid-range example will be similar, but should have either generic or physical damage over time multiplier as well. And an optimized example should feature both generic and physical damage over time multiplier, alongside at least some life. For our helmet, I heavily recommend the cheap and unbelievably strong Asylum, which I discuss in depth in the basics section of the guide. If you decide the channeling nature isn't for you, and you're willing to take the massive damage loss, you can run a flexibly priced rare, focused on life, resistances, and armor. Here are the best enchantments to look for. This is a very low priority upgrade, as none of these will be widely available on Asylum. Our gloves will be flexibly priced rares. A budget example will have the usual life, armor, and resistances. An optimized example will be similar